excited to be speaking this morning and sharing a little bit um, just about learning and making learning a part of who you are. Did you know that kids every summer lose about 2 to 3 months of progress during the summer months? So when school starts back in the fall, the first quarter is purely focused on helping kids relearn knowledge or skills that they lost over the summer. Can you imagine how much more productive a school would be and how much more kids could learn if they weren't having to relearn skills and knowledge that they lost, especially if they spent the summer actually continuing to learn, maybe not like as grueling as school might be, but continuing to learn and challenge themselves. What would the first quarter of the year end up looking like? How much further could some of our kids end up being? The kids call, or the teachers call this the summer slump. And a lot of us think that the summer slump, it's normal and it's totally to be expected, right? Kids need a break, they need time. But are you expecting yourself to also have a summer slump? Or is that mentality a part of your life in your business now? That because we know we don't just stop learning. If we have a summer slump and we're coming back having to relearn everything that we once knew before, we're obviously not needing to relearn. We're relearning everything. We're not just picking up where we left off. So we're having a slump. We're going backwards. So where are you going backwards? Where are you going backwards because you're not focused on learning? You're not just stagnant. So think through that. When you are learning, you are actually propelling yourself forward. So being learning based isn't just about taking a course. It's not about collecting certifications. It's about a posture, an identity, about who you are. When you are constantly learning, you become somebody who is an avid learner. I've found that there's two kind of people in our industry, and I'm sure you each know both of them, but where do you sit? There's the knower and the learner. And the knower, we all know this person, and I know none of you actually are this person, but this person says, well, I've been in the business for 30 years. This is just how it works. They're not wrong. That might be how it works, but they might not be looking at new and different ways to get things done because they're relying on what their experiences have been in the past, and they're not figuring out new ways to improve. They're just coasting on their experience. The learner, they say something different. They say, I've been in the market, I've been in this industry for 10 years, but let me share with you what I've learned this month. Let me share with you how I can get us to the closing table more efficiently. It's the same conversation, but your experience is going to be different. One is leaning on only what they've experienced, and the other one is actually looking forward and looking for new ways to improve. The knower actually tends to be more confident, or they might appear more confident when they walk into a room. But confidence on old information is a dangerous place to be because I don't know if you've realized this, which I'm sure you have, but this industry never stays still. And so if you are not moving forward, you're going to stay still or move backwards on old information. I'm sure most of you have read the book Atomic Habits, and James Clear talks about the idea of getting 1% better every single day. And I've heard Teresa talk about this so many times. 1% better is small incremental changes, small learnings, just putting new thoughts in your brain every day. It will actually completely change the direction of your life. If you get better, if you have more information, 1% more information every single day, you're 37 times better than where you started at the beginning of the year. Now flip that. If you decline 1%, every single day, you're closer to zero than when you started. Same math, you're just moving in opposite directions. And I know that you are not somebody that wants to move backwards. You're somebody that is wanting to constantly move forward and better themselves. So just remember, it doesn't have to be 10% better every year, every day. It just needs to be 1%. It just needs to be reading 10 pages or listening to a podcast on your way to the office or thinking through how you could have handled a situation differently. But how do we actually do this? I feel like this is all information that we already know. These are things that we need to do. We need to be better 1% every day. But how do we actually do that? Well, there's a couple things, a couple commitments that I want you to think through and see if you want to make these commitments. I'm challenging you. First, schedule your learning like it's an appointment. We all know the bold law, if it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. And thankfully, for every single person here, you are the committed huddlers of our office and you are here. So you are already 1% better every day because you are showing up to huddle and you're moving in the right direction. We tend to fill every single hour with things that feel urgent versus how can we truly grow? So if you don't plan for your learning time, it's never going to happen. The second commitment I want you to think through is how can you learn from your own work? I feel like this one's really underrated. After every single listing appointment, after every single phone conversation with the client, after a deal falls apart, after every single closing, sit back and think. Think through what went right, what went wrong. How could this have been better? What could you have done differently to improve in all of it? And also, what do you want to repeat? What was so great during that experience that you want to do every single time? You know, those conversations that you walk away from, you're like, oh, I just wish I would have said that one thing. Most of the time, it's like, that would have been really funny. It would have been, I'm not very funny. And so every time I walk away, I'm like, man, that was a great place for a joke. And I always miss it every time. But when I go back and think about it, I'm like, oh, that's where I could have been funny. So we're not talking about that necessarily, but what I'm talking about is where are you in every single conversation with your clients and with people that you lead, are you reflecting on to see how you could have improved or what you want to repeat? Your experience are literally the most personalized learning resource that we have. So don't waste it. Learn from yourself. The third commitment I want you to make is find 1 to 3 people and build a learning circle. This one is huge. Did you know that when you learn something, you don't truly learn it, you don't truly internalize it until you have shared it or taught it with somebody else? When you're sharing something with somebody, it truly sticks in your brain. I wonder if teachers could have students the fourth quarter of the year start teaching what they've learned, start sharing it with the class, then maybe they wouldn't lose as much during the summer. The summer slump might not be as big. So I challenge you to make that commitment of sharing what you're learning with others and listening and letting others share it back, share what they're learning back with you. This is going to be the fastest way for you to truly teach and internalize what you're learning. So those are 3 things. They're really simple. Schedule it, reflect on your work, and find your people to build your circle. And that's it. They're really simple, but they're not easy, but they're absolutely worth it. So remember, the kids who lose ground over summer, they're not bad students. They just stopped learning. So don't be the agent, don't be the leader who stops in the in-between moments. The market doesn't take summers off, and your competition doesn't either. Learn not just what's required or when it's required, but truly learn because that's who you are, because you're a learner. So that's what I have. I wanted to talk a little bit about books and podcasts and YouTube channels and things that I love that I think you could glean a lot from as well. And I would love for anybody to put in the chat what their favorite books or podcasts or YouTube channels are as well, so we can be sharing what we're learning and we can be learning similar things. So obviously, I think all of our favorite podcasts is Teresa Flood on the Upside. I know every single one of you listen to her. Another favorite podcast that I have is called School of Sales by Macey McNeely. And she is somebody that shows up and is very serious about persuading for good and the good that sales is, and making sure that we can communicate in a very articulate way to get people to where they want to go. And so the School of Sales podcast by Macey McNeely is incredible. Who else? Jeff Glover with Live Unreal is awesome. I love when he interviews other agents about what's working in the industry. Craig Rochelle has an awesome leadership podcast that is great if you're wanting to lean into leadership. That is a great podcast. And then, of course, MREA podcast is another good one that that Jason Abrams does. I know y'all have heard of that one. As far as y'all's podcasts and your books, what are your favorite ones that you're learning? Share in the chat. Let me read some of them out. If I can find them. Oh, Jay Shetty's podcast. That's great. Outwitting the Devil. That sounds like a good one. I need to check that out. Yes, Daniel and Craig Rochelle is awesome. So thank y'all for sharing. Housing Wire Daily Podcast. That's a really good one. I haven't listened to that one in a really long time. I need to add that back on my list. So as real estate agents, we are in the car all the time. So utilize the in-between moments to truly lean in and listen. Because honestly, if we're just using some of those in-between moments to grow, we're going to be unstoppable. So anyways, thanks for having me today. Rock stuff.